Welcome to the White and Blue Podcast. I'm Doug Goodnow, and my co-host is Colleen McGinnis. We're here to tell the interesting stories of Hillsdale College alumni, or more accurately, help them share their own stories. Here's a little bit about today's guest. Hillsdale College was only 100 or so miles from his East Side Detroit home, but to Tom Martilotti from the class of 1967, it was almost a world away. The son of Italian immigrants came to Hillsdale as a walk-on football player and eventually earned a scholarship. A former high school teacher and coach, he later started his own business, Tom Martilotti Sales. The former Hillsdale Alumni Board president continues to stay active in his business and with the college. Tom, thank you for joining us today.
Well, good morning. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
All right, Tom, it's always a pleasure to see you. You are come to many Hillsdale events, alumni events in Detroit. You've stayed connected to the college for a long time, and it's just been a joy to get to know you slowly over the last few years. So thank you so much for being engaged with the college as you are. I think we'll talk about that more a little bit later.
Okay.
But first, I want to talk to you about how you grew up and coming to Hillsdale from Detroit. I know it's not that far, and we've already kind of touched on that, but it felt far to you because of your childhood and your family life. And tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay. Well, I grew up on the east side of Detroit. I was born at home by my grandmother. So she delivered me, but I was the youngest of four children. And as they say, my parents immigrated here in 1937. I was the last of four children. So I have three older siblings, and I was the baby, But I was always active in sports, running around. I never came home. They always had to come find me, But I got introduced to Hillsdale by my high school football coach. His name was Joe Sanitate, and he graduated in 1960. And my senior year, I was really interested in trying to play college football. So he said, well, we can take you up to Hillsdale, and you can talk to them. And so I was introduced to Muddy Waters. And coming up here today, or this past weekend for the alumni event, I came down old US 12. Remember the first time I came here, that's where Coach Sanitate drove us. And like I said, I grew up in Detroit. I really never traveled a whole lot. And, it was 100 miles away, but that was a long way for me. We're driving down US 12, and I'm kind of thinking, where are we going, A lot of country, I had grown up in the city. And so it was kind of nostalgic for me to take US 12 coming up here for the reunion. Kind of reminded me of my first trip. So
Yeah, you came here as a star quarterback, but they found out maybe you didn't have the arm to play college quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So they moved you to fullback.
Right.
So tell me about that, and then you went from a walk-on to earning a scholarship to basically being an award winner your senior year.
Sure, yeah. Well, it was a new experience, really. I went to a relatively small high school. It was an all-boys Catholic high school. And we played very competitive football. But coming to college was an awakening for me because, we had maybe 25, 30 kids on the varsity when I was in high school. And I think our first practice, there were 100 candidates out there, So it was a little overwhelming, and a little overwhelming after the first practice at quarterback. I didn't have a real strong arm, and they said, well, you should move over, And I did, I wanted to be here, and I certainly wasn't going to go home. But it was a challenge, but it was certainly well worth it. I was fortunate to have the opportunity, and I think I made the most of it.
So you said you wanted to be here.
Yes.
Why? What about Hillsdale compelled you to want to stay?
It was an opportunity for me to go away. Like I said, I was the youngest of four children. My parents coming from Italy were pretty strict. My older brothers and sisters didn't have the opportunities that I had. And it's just, for some reason, I always wanted to go away to school. And my parents weren't really receptive. They thought I should stay home. My dad worked at the Ford Motor Company for 41 years. He said, you should go to State, or Wayne State, and come to Ford, And I said, well, I don't want to do that. But it all worked out. They certainly didn't stop me, but it was different, for a child to leave home. They expected me to stay home, but it worked out. They backed me up. My dad drove me up here the first year, And it was just a great experience. Like I said, I look back on it, it was probably, I've had a successful life and a good life, but 4 years I spent at Hillsdale I'll never forget them.
Well, over the years, I've been hearing stories about students living in the field house.
Yeah.
And some of that experience. And that would have been an interesting conversation for your parents to say, hey, I'm living in a field house. So tell me about living in Stock's field house.
Well, as a freshman, I lived in Galloway first semester. And then second semester, because I did fairly well in football, I had the opportunity to live in the field house. And we had various jobs. We didn't have to pay any room. It was free. But, we worked for it. And there were 8 of us that lived in the field house. There were 4 on one side and 4 on the other side, and it was above the locker rooms. And it wasn't plush, but it was clean. We had a bed to stay in. There was a bathroom up there. There were showers downstairs. And
were you all in the same room, like a big great room, or was it different rooms?
Like I said, there were 4 on one side and 4 on the other. There were 4 bunk beds.
Okay. Okay, so 4 in a
right,
in
yeah,
each room.
and double, one on the bottom, one on the top.
Okay.
So 2 in each room. And like I said, we were all jocks, I guess, and it was comfortable, It was kind of like we had our own, if we wanted to, we could go out and lift weights, play basketball, and there was a study area, so it was very convenient. I lived there my second semester of my freshman year, and then one summer I went to summer school, and I lived there also. So I lived there 2 different times. But it was very comfortable.
So I can relate a little on being the youngest. So I'm the youngest of 3.
Yes.
And my parents learn on the first couple, you know? And then they get a little bit more hands-off on the last.
Well,
so
I connect with that.
So I
like
learned,
I said, I did a lot more than my 2 sisters and brothers.
Yeah.
They were pretty strict.
Yeah. So I came all the way from Washington, which is not, it's I'm not the child of immigrants, but Washington and sometimes does feel like another country. So coming all the way from there, but I can relate on that front. And driving down 12 and coming off of 94 or 96, I can't remember. It was the one that you get off right in kind of over by St. Joe area. And
right.
So coming over and all of the old architecture was very unknown to me. Like just growing up in the West, everything's newer. And so I had a very similar experience on that front. But now, did your parents did they get kind of on board with Hillsdale as you were here? Were they supportive of everything?
They came to see me play.
Yeah, good.
Right. And my older brother would come and visit me every now and then. My sister lived in New Jersey at that time, and she would write me letters. They were very supportive. I guess the thing is that, my brother couldn't go away to college, and here's the little guy saying, I'm going away. And they went along with it. It wasn't like you can't go, or there wasn't any friction. Yeah. But they were very supportive.
Oh, good. Yeah. So what would you say? You said Hillsdale, earlier you got choked up a little bit talking about your Hillsdale here.
Right. Yeah.
What was maybe the one thing, if you could define that, the one thing that really changed your life here at Hillsdale?
Well, when I first came here, it was February of '63. I graduated in June of '63. And Muddy was very welcoming, My 2 hosts, there's a fellow by the name of Al Cox. He had gone to St. Joe's. He was a senior, so he was my host. And another fellow by the name of Alex Korzeniewski. They were both football players. And they were very welcoming, We went to the hut. I don't think many people remember the hut. You have to go way back. That was before we had a student union, really. There was a student union, but it wasn't very
Was
nice.
it up the hill? Was it on the hill?
The hut?
There? Yeah.
The hut was right on Hillsdale Street.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yep. And it was just a little place where you could get a cup of coffee, and all the kids would kind of gather there in between classes. And then eventually the union opened, I think, the second semester of my freshman year, and the hut kind of went away. But it was very welcoming. When we had lunch at Curtis Dining Hall, Muddy was a very cordial, very pleasant, kind person. And all the guys that I met, I didn't stay overnight. I was just here for the day. And it was just, like I said, it was a great opportunity for me. if I wouldn't have come here, I probably would have went into the service. So it was just a great opportunity, very welcoming. And like I say, when I come to Hillsdale, I smile. It's just a very, very close to me.
I have a feeling you might ask something about muddy waters.
Your best muddy water story. Give it to me.
Well, I don't know. There wasn't any real significant stories, as far as being one-on-one. But he was, very kind. Almost every practice, he would have one of the guys tell a joke or something, at the end of practice. And we made national headlines when I was a freshman. During double sessions, he gave us popsicles. It was kind of a big deal, But it was, like I said, it was a real challenge for me because I was 17 when I came here. I have a late birthday. I registered for the draft here, got my driver's license here. So it was, Muddy had recruited some guys that had been in the service, so there were guys that were 21, 22 years old. And that was a big difference. I mean, I kind of felt really challenged. Hopefully I stood up and survived, but it was all worth it, that's for sure.
Now it's time for the Hillsdale History Minute, where we bring a slice of Hillsdale College history to the White and Blue podcast. For today's minute, we focus on Broadlawn, the current home of Hillsdale College president, Dr. Larry Arnn, and his family. More than 90 years ago, it was the home of Beta Alpha Delta, a fraternity on campus. It was organized in 1924 by a group of men formerly known as the American Commons Club. In April of 1935, the local fraternity decided to join a larger national fraternity, Sigma Delta Rho. However, by September, it was reported that the reorganized chapter had disbanded. The administration quickly demolished the building and began constructing Broadlawn. When Broadlawn was completed less than a year later, in the summer of 1936, no trace of the defunct fraternity remained. Okay, I think we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back with the White and Blue podcast.
Would you turn down millions of dollars per year? All you'd have to do is surrender your independence and abandon your principles for the money. That's a devil's bargain. Sadly, it's one that almost all American colleges and universities make. But one college in America says no. Our college, Hillsdale College. Hillsdale College refuses to accept 1 penny of taxpayer money, not even indirectly in the form of federal student grants and loans. By saying no to taxpayer money, we remain genuinely independent, free to pursue our original 1844 mission, pursuing truth and defending liberty. Hillsdale has over 1,500 undergraduate and graduate students on its main campus in Michigan and its satellite campus in Washington, D.C. In addition, over 3 million citizens have enrolled in our free online courses, and over 6 million American households receive our free monthly publication Imprimis delivered in the mail. You can learn more about Hillsdale's independence from government, its mission of defending liberty, and its national educational outreach programs at hillsdale.edu/penny. That's hillsdale.edu/penny. Or, if it's more convenient, text the word penny to 71844, and we'll send you a link with more information on Hillsdale's independence. That's penny to 71844.
Welcome back to the White and Blue podcast. We're here with Tom Martilotti from the class of 1967. And Tom, we talked a little bit about your college experience. Tell me a little bit about your professional experience after you graduated from Hillsdale.
When I graduated, I was a poli-sci and phys ed double major, and I had a teaching certificate. And the high school that I went to in Detroit closed, and then there was a new high school out in the suburbs called Bishop Gallagher High School, and the Christian Brothers taught there. So I interviewed there, and I was fortunate to get hired. So I taught government, and I was an assistant football coach my first year and assistant track coach. And then for some reason, the head football coach decided to only coach baseball, so they gave me the opportunity to be a head coach in my second year. So I was only 22. It was kind of a big step, but it worked out. I really enjoyed it and enjoyed teaching and then coaching football and coaching track. So I did that for 4 or 5 years and then had an opportunity to move on to the college ranks. And I interviewed up at Michigan Tech. And I started there in the spring of 1973. And that was a big opportunity. That was just a quick little story, if I could tell you. I was interviewed down here, and then the football coach said, well, you have to come on campus and be interviewed by the president. So back in those days, that was before Northwest Airlines. They flew me up there, and I flew on North Central. It was a prop plane. So we go from Detroit to Grand Rapids, go across the lake, stopped in Milwaukee, then we went up to Escanaba. Anyway, the fifth stop was Houghton. Okay, I'm the only person left on the plane. There's a stewardess, the pilot, and the co-pilot. And it's February. I get off, and I mean, all you could see was snow forever. But that was kind of a unique experience. So I interviewed, and then I drove up there. And then the other unique thing was I had to drive up there. I get to the bridge, and I realized that I'm only halfway there because you got to go all the way past the UP. If you drew a straight line from Houghton straight down, you're as far west as Chicago. In the summertime, it was light at 10 o'clock at night. You know, you were at the far western part of the time zone. But that was a good experience. I really enjoyed being at Houghton. They were very welcoming. And it was different. I was single then, and they were very concerned about what I was going to do. And I said, well, I'm going to coach football. And I said, after football, they relieved me of my teaching duties, and I was out on the road recruiting. So I said, I'm really not going to be here that much. You know, I said, there's not a lot of time, free time during football season. You know, I said, I'm going to be busy. But it was a real good experience. I was very fortunate to be there. And then from there, I moved on to Eastern Michigan, and I coached at Eastern for 3.5 years, variety of positions. I coached offensive line, linebackers, was the recruiting coordinator, and that was a good experience also. And then I think, as I've said, I did get married my last year there, and coaching is a very demanding job, and you spend a lot of time away from home. And my wife was really not insistent, but she liked the fact that I might be around a little more. So I left Eastern and then interviewed and got a job at Terry Bar Sales in the automotive industry. That was really a new challenge because, I didn't know much about cars. I drove them, but, didn't know a whole lot. But I learned quickly. We took a few classes and so forth. And Terry Bar was an excellent businessman. I learned a lot from him. So I got that opportunity, and as things moved on, he had a couple of sons who were going to take over his business, and he gave me an opportunity to go out on my own. And that was kind of different, but I'm still doing it today, and I like doing it.
So when you say go out on your own, you're representing the certain brands for the automotive industry, or how does that work?
Well, there's a lot of different tiers in the automotive industry. The OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, are companies like Ford, General Motors, Stellantis, and then you have the transplants, Honda and Toyota and so forth. And then you have another tier, the tier ones, some companies like Johnson Controls or Lear. They will make a whole assembly, like they'd make an IP panel or a door panel, and they would ship it directly to the OEM. And then you have the second tier. That's what I do. I represent a company that would make a component part that would go into the assembly. And primarily I represent a company that makes plastic parts that are decorative. So we don't have a lot of contact with the OEM except to get styling approval because, the parts all have to match, and they're coming from a variety of suppliers. So that's how I kind of learned the business, and it was real important. Terry told me a really important thing when I first started. He said, when you talk to a customer, make sure you listen and you hear what they say so that you understand what you have to do. And that was really important to me. And I've lived with that for a long time. Told that to my children, don't just listen, make sure you hear. And that was real important.
So listening, as I learn in my 6th year of marriage, is really important in marriage too.
Right. Oh,
And
yes.
you were married 47 years, is
Yes.
that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how did you and Marcia meet, and what is your secret to 47 years? Is it listening?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And hearing.
Yeah.
That's the real important part. When I was at Eastern Michigan, there was another coach there, a fellow by the name of Gene Cavage, and he was married and had a couple of children. And his wife, I used to try to help them out a little bit. I mean, it was a struggle. I mean, in those days, coaches didn't make very much money. They were married, had a couple of children. I'd buy them milk or something, or, come by and help them babysit and that sort of thing. And she said, I've got a sister. She said, maybe you'd like to meet her. So, but she lived in Kalamazoo. My wife, Marcia, worked at the Upjohn Company. So we had back then, Eastern Michigan was part of the Mid-American Conference, and every spring they would have like a conference for all the schools. So it just happened to be in Kalamazoo that year. So I met my wife there, and we dated and, got married about 6 months later.
You've been in business for a long time, but you've also been active with the college for a very long time. Tell me about why you decided to get more involved with the college, joining the alumni board, and eventually becoming its president.
Well, I guess I've always tried to be involved in certain things, Obviously, as a football coach and a teacher, you're involved in the school and the community and so forth. And when I was teaching and coaching, I really didn't have a lot of time to come back to Hillsdale. So after I got married, I said to my wife, Marcia, I said, we can go to Hillsdale. And I said, you can come with me. You can be part of the community. It's not like when I was coaching, you couldn't come with me, So that kind of helped a lot, and I enjoyed doing that. I think I originally joined the Alumni Board in 1977. So, and she used to come up with me, and sometimes when we'd have the meetings on a Saturday, we had our first child, Vince, and we would come up, and there was another fellow, I think he graduated in 74, Bill Gombrala. He used to be on the staff here, and Marcia would stay with his wife, and we'd bring our son up, and so it kind of made it a family affair. So that was real helpful because I could participate in something, and I didn't have to leave my wife home. So that was helpful.
Why was serving the college important to you?
Well, like I said, I've had a good life, successful life, and the 4 years I spent at Hillsdale were great, and I just wanted to give back. Like I say, when I come to Hillsdale, I smile a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, tell me about your time as Alumni Board President. I know when we were talking earlier, you said you really wanted to get more alumni involved. Tell me about how you did that as president.
Well, when I first came on the board in 77, there was, I don't want to be critical here, but the board was kind of stagnant. There were a number of members that had been on the board for a number of years. There weren't really any new blood coming in, And as I was president, I had suggested, I said, we should try to open this up a little bit more. And so we did. And I think we started to get some, not necessarily younger alums, but some different folks, and it was, I don't want to be too critical here, but it was kind of a clique,
Yeah.
And I didn't think that was best for the college. There should be a little more broad-based opinions here. So we did that, and I think it's been successful. And like I said, my time on the board was a good time. I really enjoyed it. And I certainly enjoy coming back to the events here. And the college is just, it's amazing. It's overwhelming to see the development, I think one of my first classes was in East Hall. It was a dilapidated building. I said, this place is going to fall down, But, the classrooms and all of the things that we have on campus now are just, it's first class. And all of the alumni events, they seem to get better every year. I came back in 2017 for my 50th reunion. Unfortunately, we didn't have a good turnout. But the staff does such a great job, and this weekend has just been terrific. I mean, it couldn't be any better. But I know you guys always get better every year, and I've witnessed that.
Well, you went from living at Stocks Fieldhouse. Now you can come back and stay at our nice Dow Center for events. So that's definitely been an improvement.
That's for sure. Yeah. Beds are a lot more comfortable.
So what would you say has remained the same from your experience here as a student and then serving and then the Hillsdale of today? What would you say, is intrinsically
well,
the same?
I think the friendliness of the campus, like yesterday morning before the activity started, I went for a walk. I went down Galloway Drive to West Street to Hillsdale Street and College Street. And, I ran into some students and they say hello, they're friendly. They said, "Who's this old guy?" Walking around with white hair. I had dark hair once, but the campus, the friendliness of the campus, that has not changed.
It's the people, as they say, right, Tom?
Right, that's for sure.
Tom, we really appreciate you joining us today. For Colleen McGinnis, this is Doug Goodnow thanking you for joining us on the White and Blue Podcast. And may that spirit long remain.